idea.
Not only was he the most gifted songwriter ever, he was the most dedicated to his art.
Sam Bush isn't the only one who would praise Bob Dylan so heavily. He's one of the most beloved songwriters of all time, with many hits to his name. He's also a controversial figure. His songs became protest anthems, and he was held up as a symbol of the counterculture of the 60s. Then Bob made a surprising turn. God came to him one dramatic night, and it influenced his life and music forever. Growing up Jewish, Bob Dylan was born May 24, 1941. His family grew up in a tight-knit Jewish community in Duluth, Minnesota. Like many Jewish boys, he had a bar mitzvah when he was 13 in May of 1954. He also went to a Jewish summer camp. When discussing his childhood, he said,
I really didn't consider myself happy or unhappy. I always knew that there was something out there that I needed to get to, and it wasn't where I was at that particular moment.
Music started to interest him when he listened to the Grand Ole Opry radio show. He was particularly inspired by the music of Hank Williams and Johnny Ray. He joined several bands while attending Hibbing High School. He started introducing himself as Bob Dylan while enrolled at the University of Minnesota. He chose it partially because of his admiration for poet Dylan Thomas. When asked about the decision to change his name, he said,
"Some people get born, to the wrong names, wrong parents. I mean, that happens. You call yourself what you want to call yourself. This is the land of the free."
It was the beginning of his willingness to hide parts of himself for the sake of his music and career. Hiding faith for fame. Bob eventually grew older and became a famous musician. He never abandoned his faith, but began to essentially hide it professionally. Bob was a symbol of the counterculture movement that epitomized the 60s. Songs like The Times They Are A-Changin' and Blowin' in the Wind became anthems for the civil rights movement. It made him one of the most popular songwriters of all time, but it didn't always make him the easiest to work with. He had difficulties with other musicians who were more open about their faith. Johnny Cash was a friend and collaborator because of their shared belief in nonconformity. But he also found Bob's lifestyle irreligious and ungodly. Bob wasn't always clear about his spiritual beliefs, but he did always believe there was a God. He said, quote, "I don't think I've ever been an agnostic. I've always thought there's a superior power, that this is not the real world, and that there's a world to come. That no soul has died, every soul is alive, either in holiness or in flames, and there's probably a lot of middle ground." He also believed in the Bible. He believed the signs to come of the end times, particularly in the book of Revelations, would eventually come. Bob always had the Lord in his heart somewhere. Like Paul on the road to Damascus, it took a significant life-changing experience for him to say he believed in Jesus Christ publicly. His conversion moment. Bob was in the midst of a year-long tour in 1978. He was exhausted, physically ill, and mentally worn down from his divorce from Sarah Lowndes the past year. They'd been married for 11 years and had 4 children together. At the end of the grueling tour, during a show in San Diego, someone in the crowd threw a silver cross on the stage. Bob was used to fans throwing things at his concerts and normally wasn't fazed by it. This time, it hit him differently. He picked it up, put it in his pocket, and took it with him to the next spot on the tour in Arizona. He had a dramatic experience in a hotel room in Tucson. He had what he called a literal visitation from Jesus Christ. He later told the UK magazine Independent that he saw, quote, "a presence that couldn't have been anybody but Jesus. Jesus put his hand on me. It was a physical thing. I felt it. I felt it all over me. I felt my whole body tremble. The glory of the Lord knocked me down and picked me up." The experience changed him forever. He became a born-again Christian, though he doesn't believe that's a helpful term. Bob almost exclusively focused on gospel writing after his conversion moment. He displayed his faith in 3 albums, 1979's Slow Train Comin', 1980's Saved, and 1981's Shot of Love. Many of those songs became hits. Slow Train Coming was named number 16 on a list of 100 greatest albums in Christian music, with hits such as I Believe in You, Gonna Change My Way of Thinking, and When He Returns. But not all of his fans felt the same way. Some didn't appreciate the change. Many once loyal fans said they missed the old Dylan. Fred Tackett, the lead guitarist in his band, even says he remembered a concert goer in the front row holding a sign that read, "Jesus loves your old songs." Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards didn't buy Bob's conversion, calling him a prophet of profit. John Lennon reportedly wrote "Serve Yourself" as a parody of "Gotta Serve Somebody." Many critics were harsh. One for the San Francisco Chronicle had cutting words about what he dubbed, quote, Bob Dylan's god-awful gospel, saying he'd written, quote, some of the most banal, uninspired, and inventionless songs of his career during his Jesus phase. Some fans found disturbingly creative ways to push back. The atheist activist Madeline O'Hare and a man dressed in white walked in front of a theater he was singing at while holding a cross. It didn't matter to Bob at the time, and probably doesn't now. He was glad fans would hear the message he was trying to spread. As he put it,
I follow God, so if my followers are following me, indirectly they're going to be following God too, because I don't sing any song which hasn't been given to me by the Lord to sing. Tell me, John.
Has Bob's conversion lasted? Bob says he finds spirituality in music. This may be part of why he occasionally performs his old gospel tunes on the never-ending tour he's currently on. The overall focus of his music has changed. His recently released songs became secular again after his 3 gospel albums. Most reports say he returned to Judaism, perhaps even Orthodox Judaism. His son had a bar mitzvah as well. Whatever faith he now practices, he hasn't lost faith entirely. He's made small but powerful references to God in public. In a 2004 interview with 60 Minutes, he told Ed Bradley,
The press, the media, that's not the judge. God's the judge. The only person you have to think about lying twice to is either yourself or to God.
He also said his touring schedule was part of a bargain with the chief commander in this earth and in the world we can't see. Bob called himself a religious person when he was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal in 2022. He said, quote, I read the scriptures a lot, meditate and pray, light candles in church. I believe in damnation and salvation as well as predestination. The 5 books of Moses, Pauline epistles, invocation of the saints, all of it. A surprising bootleg. It's not surprising that bootlegs of Bob Dylan's music exist. He's such a popular artist, there are bound to be unauthorized remixes or copies of his songs. What is surprising is that he's authorized one of them. Volume 13 of his Bootleg Bonanza contains outtakes, rehearsals, and music he didn't feel could fit on an album. He released Trouble No More, the Bootleg Series, Volume 13, 1979 to 81. It's an 8-CD bootleg with 14 previously unreleased tracks. A new book. A new book was released called Bob Dylan, Mixing Up the Medicine, named after a line from his hit song, Subterranean Homesick Blues. It's edited by Mark Davidson and Parker Fischel of the Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa. It gives deeper insight into his life than ever before. It contains photos, draft lyrics, drawings, and other materials from the artist's archives. Mark said, quote, one of the surprising things that we find in the early notebooks, early draft manuscripts, is how much he was forecasting his career. He's been omnivorous about his musical tastes and knowledge since pretty much when he was a teenager. The book also doesn't shy away from Bob's faith journey. It notes that, if you look at the materials from his archives, like draft lyrics, you can see he was exploring themes of faith before he had his dramatic conversion moment. They'd always been present in his work. The vision was the final push that led him to focus on these topics. Mark and Parker disagree with critics of Bob's gospel music. They deny accusations that his conversion came out of nowhere because evangelicalism was on the rise at the time. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite Bob Dylan album? Let us know in the comments section below.